Well, this is an update on the 86 Ford Escort. So I haven't driven it or started it in over a month, and the engine just kept stalling and wanted to die, and it wouldn't start or want to stay running at all. So I think I have to at least start with the fuel system and try to replace some of the filtering. So the main aftermarket filter that was added in the front was an actual water separator like this. These are always over tightened and stuff, and I can't get the filter off. Even this is a new replacement assembly, and this is even over tightened, and I can't separate this myself. I'm gonna try to just take apart the old assembly and put this new one in. So this has a vent plug there, and of course the drain one to drain it. But I drained all the fuel out of this cup on the old one into a Gatorade bottle, and it was all yellow, so I'm not sure exactly how bad or how old the fuel is. And then I got some thread sealant stuff to try to put on these other plugs. But these are most commonly used on marine engines for boats, which is a water separator, but this particular one should work for diesel too. And it's got the same filter part number here as the existing one on the car, but I'm replacing this whole assembly anyway. And then there's another small filter that goes directly into the aftermarket electronic fuel pump. So here's what we're working with. It's all right up front. So here's the existing aftermarket fuel filter and water separator. And then over here, this green guy is a Mr. Gasket electronic fuel pump. And then there's a little filter there too. I should probably try to change. Alright guys, it's out. This is the old one. So I just unbolted it and everything, pulled the fuel lines. And of course I kept a catch pan underneath to let a tiny bit of the fuel drain out of those lines. And it was still kind of yellow. But look how old this existing one is. There's even like sludge at the bottom of this, if you can see. I don't know what that is. You can see all that trash in there. I just wanted to show a brief shot of the old versus the new. So one of the most important things you want to pay attention to is the fuel inlet versus outlet, or the fuel flow. So anyhow, under the hood, the fuel flow is basically coming from this line up here into that small filter, which I haven't taken out yet, then through this electronic fuel pump, and that line came down and into this water separator. So the fuel travels from the left side coming in this way and out this port here, and then up into the injection pump. So we have to replicate the same fuel flow when you replace all this stuff. So what I need to do next is plug the ones I'm not using. This is actually set up to be used on 2 sets of fuel lines. So basically for a boat application, you could use this on 2 separate outboard motors. So I need to get those plugs for the other 2 ports, and then put all the thread locker stuff in there, and then put in these other bolts here for the fuel lines. And I have to make sure they're actually the same diameter so they'll fit my lines here. Otherwise I might have to attempt to take these out, and that might not be an easy task. Okay, so I got all these bolts back in with the thread sealant. They're all tightened up and snug. So now I'm gonna try to put this back in there and reattach the fuel lines, and then tighten down the hose clamps and bolt this bracket guy back to the front of here where they had it. I don't think the new one actually included new bolts for up here, so I have to just reuse those tiny ones. And then we'll replace the other filter in there, going to the pump. Okay, it's gonna be hard not to get this camcorder all filthy, and I don't have my tripod or anything. But I'm trying to get these lines put on, and I gotta find the hose clamps. Just this one slid way down somewhere. So just trying to put this on here, and then that hose clamp will go on that side and the other side. I don't know exactly how long this thread sealant stuff is supposed to dry and cure before you run fuel through here, or if it matters. I've got different size screws. Oh wow, these thread clamps, or the hose clamps, are actually different widths, so they just threw whatever random hose clamps on here. Look how wide this one is and how narrow the left side is. Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll try to get this bolted back up. Okay, I've got this bolted on there, good and solid. The existing one was loose and flopping around a good deal, so that's definitely on there good. Now I'll have to get to that other filter. Not sure how difficult that's going to be to change. Then we'll see if this thing will even start again, let alone if it'll stay running. Other updates on this thing overall. Within the past couple months, I had to replace the alternator, so that's pretty easy to get to. It's just right up top. And then the bracket it mounts to, there's the slot in there, so you can just bolt it in, and then as you torque down the alternator bolts, it tightens the whole belt, even though it is pretty small still. But yeah, I had electrical issues, and if your alternator is bad or going bad, there's obvious signs. Primarily electrical issues, or if you measure the battery under load and it's not at least 13 or 14 volts. So for instance, my turn signals didn't hardly work at all, and even my windshield wipers seemed sluggish, and all those issues were pretty much resolved after I replaced this. So the old one's down here, and it's just old and dirty. And then I bought this one. I had to order it online through AutoZone, and they have a limited lifetime replacement on it, so that's good. But that was one thing. And then, you know, the fuel system issue, it just died on me on the way home, and I almost didn't make it home. And that was just over a month ago now. But anyway, I'll try to get to this other filter over here, right down there. I made sure to look up the part numbers, so the marking number on the side was like 12D, and the replacement one I have has the same identification, whatever that amounts to, so it should be the correct part. I'm not entirely sure if there is another fuel filter under the car. I was trying to ask the seller I bought this from about that, and kind of said he thought the original fuel filter was bypassed and that it was mounted to the firewall, and the rest of the fuel line goes down toward the firewall, but there's just a piece of the rubber fuel line kind of spliced in there, and it might even be spliced in again below that further down, so it's hard to actually tell exactly where it goes. hoping this will be easy enough to change, and we'll see if she'll start. Oh dear. I'm glad I noticed this, but this is my power wire for the electronic fuel pump, and it's just spliced in with one of these butt connectors, and the wire came out. And then I believe the ground wire is just right there. So I may actually want to solder this in just to have a more secure connection. Glad I spotted it, because otherwise I'd probably have more problems on our hands if this thing wouldn't even run. Here's this replacement. This is the new filter to go into the pump. I think this part just sort of bolts in and threads into the side of the electronic pump, and then your fuel line goes over this. And so hopefully that's a simple matter of just swapping it out. Okay, I got this taken apart now. I just had to hold that rubber part there with channel locks because it started to turn. But this came apart luckily, and I'll need to put some thread sealant on that end of the new filter, and then take that fuel line off. Actually no, not that one, this one here. Take that fuel line off, put it back on the new filter, and then bolt all that back up. Try to solder that positive supply wire to the pump, well, to that switch wire inside the car. And that should be it for all these two filters. But some of the fuel dripping out of these lines is still yellow, so I really don't know exactly how old the fuel was in this thing, because the guy I bought it from lived on a farm, and he didn't actually have it registered on the road. It hadn't been registered on the road in 2 years, I think he said. So it could have just been sitting for a while, and then the fuel gauge I thought was on empty, and I filled it up just with a jerry can. So the new one's in there now, and it has like a bigger flange type of nut on there, so I just used a larger adjustable spanner wrench to tighten that. And I still put the thread sealant on the thread since the existing one had it. And interestingly enough, this is specifically a diesel fuel pump here. I guess hence the 12D part number on the filter. So I just have to put this fuel line back on and then run back into the house, grab my soldering iron, solder that, and then will come the moment of truth. See if she'll start. Alright, so the job's all done. I really want to just hurry up and see if this will start so I can call it a night, because it's freezing out here. So I need to just try to reconnect the battery. I ended up just soldering that and putting tape over it, because when I do use heat shrink tubing, I usually tend to melt it with a lighter, and I definitely didn't want to have an open flame anywhere near anything to do with fuel delivery. So gotta just reconnect the battery. Not exactly sure how long I should allow the fuel pump to run before I try to crank the engine as far as priming the system, but I guess we'll see what's gonna happen. Alright, so we have power, headlights are on. Put her in neutral, I guess, and try switching this pump on. Alright, the pump's running, I can hear it. So we gotta see how this is gonna prime, because it'll have to refill the lines, and I'm not sure if this entire cup actually fills up all the way when it's pressurized. I think it might. But yeah, I'm not sure how long to allow the pump to run before I crank it. Just gotta prime the system. But I thought I still had at least half to 3/4 of a tank of fuel when I ran this thing last. Let's see what happens here. Wait to start. I might even need to like cycle this other pump a few times with the ignition or something, I'm not sure. Let me check the battery connection again. Oh, it's dark, man. I had this battery left on the trickle charger for a while, but I don't know. I'm really not sure how good the fuel is exactly. Alright, the throttle pedal works again. Not sure what that whining noise is. At least it started. Not sure how reliably this is going to stay running. I'm almost afraid to take my foot off the pedal. I really miss that sound, Tim and Jonathan. Should I take my foot off yet? I'm afraid it might not start again if it dies. Alright, my foot's completely off. And she's at 7 to 800. So I think I want to just let this warm up for a while, just to see what happens. My memory card in the camcorder is about out of memory, so... Alright, sorry about the cut there. I had to clear some files off this memory card in the camcorder. But she's still running. Temp gauge isn't even off the cold position yet, because it's freezing out here. Like, even sitting in the car here, I can totally see my breath. And it's cold. I don't even know how cold it is outside. Probably like, let's see. I'm just curious if it's running any smoother than before. Maybe. Man, that's cold. Yeah, see, my fuel gauge here, I still have probably 2/3 of a tank, if you can see that. So, I knew it wasn't out of fuel. But I don't remember when I put fuel in this. It was probably like September or October, and today's December 19th. So I'm definitely glad this thing at least starts up and runs again. I'm just not sure how quickly and easily it's going to actually crank after replacing all that stuff, because I mean, this still hesitates to start in such bitter cold weather anyway, since it's a diesel, and it died on me November 18th and today's December 19th, so it's already been a month. See, power steering pump's still leaking. I keep having to add more fluid to it. But whatever. And the parking brake is shot. This doesn't work at all, so luckily I'm on level ground here in my garage, so I can keep the transmission in neutral and this won't go anywhere. But even when it died on me, that one day I had to literally just push it into the garage because I barely even made it up my driveway. I was driving home from work that day, and the engine just kept bogging down and stalling, and it was hard to even start back up again, and it would just die in the middle of the road. And it would hesitate to even start back up again. So that was kind of rough. And then the accelerator pedal didn't even do anything when I stepped on it, so yeah, I couldn't even see inside the cup of that old water separator, but there was sludge at the bottom, so I can't even imagine how nasty the actual filter media must look. Maybe we can take a quick peek under the hood and around the car. Yeah, she's running pretty smooth. Should grab my light. But I'm really happy and excited that it's running again. Still might be questionable to actually go for a drive, but it's supposed to warm up next week during Christmas and be in the 40s, so maybe I can at least take it around the bar. Here's the separator down there. Try to put the light underneath. That still looks yellow. I'm not sure if that's normal or not. Oh well. Pump's still working good. I should get my catch pan out from under there. Yeah, glad she's running. I think I might just let it warm up and then turn the key off and try to restart it and see how quickly it'll restart, but I'm not too sure. It's still really cold out anyway. Alright, she's been running a while. I got my cool dash lights in here. Don't know if I showed those yet in a video. These are LEDs. There's my headlights up there. My temp gauge is pretty much in the normal range now. So, just out of curiosity, I want to shut this down and see how easily it'll restart. It might just fire right up since it's already been running, but I'm just kind of curious to see what it does. Should turn the light on. Got really bad lighting in here. Let's see what happens here if I get my hands stuck in the steering wheel. Not too much hesitation. I guess that's normal. Little red line for a good time. Don't want to upset the neighbors. They were already looking this way a little while ago. But yeah, I think she's good to go for now anyway. So let's just shut her down and call it a night. Turn that pump off. I think this is supposed to be running the whole time the engine's on and when you're driving. Right? The fuel pump. But yeah, I always notice like a tiny bit of a burning smell, but that might just be the exhaust. And it's hard to get this key out with one hand, so call it a night. Hope everyone gives us a thumbs up and stay tuned for the next video, or whatever that may be. Thanks for watching. Glad I got her running again. I have to go for a test drive next week when it warms up a bit. Alright, we'll see you later, guys.